Hello everyone and welcome back to the BasedDigimon channel. Are we really doing this again? Greetings everyone and welcome to my little garden. In today's video, we will be looking at a very special deck profile. This deck is inspired by one of my favorite Digitubers, BasedDigimon. The deck itself is built around the personality and aesthetics of BasedDigimon himself. Do keep in mind that this deck profile is just for fun, and it isn't necessarily meant to be competitive. Except it kind of is. It performs exceptionally well in the current BT13 competitive environment, at least at the time of recording this video. So, with that out of the way, let's get started. First, we will be talking about the Digi Eggs. We are gonna need 4 copies of BT11 Wanyamon. This will be the only Digi Egg we will need, so we won't be using a 5th egg. This Wanyamon draws you a card once per turn when attacking while you have a blue tamer in play. This deck plays a great deal of tamers, and you'll almost always have at least one of them present whenever you play this deck. This all makes this egg your best option when compared to other blue Digi Eggs, as it is by far the most consistent in rewarding your actions due to the nature of how this deck plays. Alright, let's move on to the rookies. For our rookies, we are going to be playing 4 Gammon, and also 4 Gammon. We love Gammon, BasedDigimon loves Gammon, and Gammon is the mascot of BasedDigimon's YouTube channel, so we are obviously using cards from the Gammon family of Digimon. First, we have the BT13 Gammon, which, once per turn when attacking, both players draw the top card of their deck. One of the main mechanics of this deck is to use effects to deliberately add more cards to your opponent's hand. For its inheritable effect during all turns, while your opponent has 8 or more cards in hand, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. BT13 Gammon can add some early pressure by crashing into the opponent's security, while also adding more cards to both players' hands. This can be done as a throwaway tactic, sure, but you'll also have a few potential opportunities to give this Digimon jamming. The next Gammon is from EX4. On play, both players draw the top card of their deck. This is arguably the best rookie of the bunch, as it safely adds cards to both players' hands without actually committing to an attack. Its inheritable effect rewards you with 1 memory should you cause your opponent to add a card to their hand via your effects. And with this deck, you will have plenty of opportunities to do exactly that. The final Gammon is from BT11. On play, it reveals the top 3 cards so that you may add 1 Digimon with Galgamon in its name and also 1 blue tamer. This card is your main searcher, allowing you to find the pieces that you need. Do keep in mind that unlike many searcher rookies, this Gammon does not allow you to put the remaining cards you revealed back to your deck. Instead, you're required to trash the remaining cards. You won't have any methods to retrieve cards from your trash either, so do be mindful when you make your choice. For its inheritable effect, when attacking, you may return 1 of your opponent's level 3 Digimon to their hand if you have a blue tamer in play. This is an excellent way to get rid of pesky rookies, especially ones that can prevent you from gaining memory, such as Terriermon or Chewmon. Now we move on to our level 4s. Next are the champions. We will be using 4 copies of BT13 Galgamon, 4 copies of EX4 Galgamon, and 2 copies of BT11 Galgamon, for a total of 10 level 4 Digimon. BT13 Galgamon is your main way of playing your tamers. When digivolving, if you don't already have a Thomas in play, then you may play one from your hand at no cost. This is one of your best ways of establishing board presence. This deck is at its best when Thomas is actively supporting it, and BT13 Gammon helps you set that up. Its inheritable effect is identical to that of BT13 Gammon, making your Digimon stronger while your opponent has 8 or more cards in hand. Next is the EX4 Gammon, which is just as good, but for different reasons. When Digivolving, you return one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon back to their hand. Once again, this is an excellent way of removing pesky rookies. Its inheritable effect is the same as EX4 Gammon's. Speaking of which, if you manage to Digivolve into this card from your EX4 Gammon, you will gain that one memory if you were able to remove an opponent's rookie upon Digivolution. Last is the BT11 Gammon, which lets you gain 1 memory when attacking while your opponent has 8 or more cards in hand. A neat trick, but rather situational at best. This is an action best done if you granted this Gammon with jamming, and if your opponent also doesn't have any stronger blockers getting in your way. Its inheritable skill is the same as BT11 Gammon's. And now, we move on to the ultimates. And so, for our level 5s, we are playing 3 copies of BT13 Mac Gammon, 3 copies of EX4 Mac Gammon, and 2 copies of BT11 Mac Gammon, for a total of 8 level 5 Digimon. BT13 Mac Gammon prevents the opponent from switching this Digimon's attack target while your opponent has 8 or more cards in hand. This is a pretty good way of getting past your opponent's defensive responses. More important than that is the inheritable effect, which allows you to unsuspend this Digimon when an effect adds a card to your opponent's hand. Next is EX4 Mac Gammon, which returns one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon back to their hand when Digivolving. Its inheritable effect also lets you unsuspend this Digimon, but the condition this time is if your opponent has 8 or more cards in hand. And lastly is BT11 Mac Gammon. This is the most defensive of the 3 Mac Gammons, as this Digimon gains blocker and plus 2000 DP for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand upon Digivolving. This effect lasts until the end of your opponent's turn, and remains intact should you decide to further Digivolve into a level 6. Its inheritable effect is identical to that of BT13 Mac Gammon's. While all these effects are pretty neat, the inheritable effects are truly the most valuable aspect of these cards, as it grants your top-end Digimon more opportunities to attack. For your level 5 lineup, do feel free to change up the ratios, as you may feel inclined to play a full playset of a particular one. Now, it's time we talk about our megas. Coming in as a surprise to absolutely no one, our lineup of level 6s consists entirely of Mirage Gammon. 2 copies of BT13 Mirage, and 4 copies of BT11 Mirage, for a total of 6. BT13 Mirage comes with a relatively uncommon keyword, Evade, which allows this Digimon to avoid being deleted. When Digivolving, it also returns one of your opponent's tamers back to their hand, and being able to remove an opponent's tamers at all is a pretty exceptional ability. This card also allows you to play Thomas when an effect adds a card to the opponent's hand. Overall, a strong level 6 Mirage, but not quite as powerful as its BT11 counterpart. Speaking of which, BT11 Mirage is the more potent of the 2. When Digivolving, you return one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon back to their hand. But if no Digimon was returned by this effect, then the opponent adds the top card of their security instead. This is an excellent effect, further sweetened by the card's secondary effect, which gains you 1 memory for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand. This effect can happen on all turns once per turn, so it even punishes your opponent if they themselves use effects that add cards to their hand. But of course, it doesn't stop here. Mirage Gammon will now reach the limits of its abilities. We will be utilizing 4 level 7 Digimon cards, and that means 4 copies of BT13 Mirage Gammon Burst Mode. This is, of course, the most powerful form of the Gammon family. As this is a base Digimon deck profile, we are legally obligated to maximize our usage of this card by having 4 copies of it. Burst Mode allows you to perform Burst Digivolution. By returning 1 Thomas you have in play back to your hand, you can Digivolve into Burst Mode from a Mirage Gammon for free. The catch? When the turn you Burst Digivolved comes to an end, you trash the top card of this Digimon. Or in other words, your level 7 Digimon reverts back into a level 6 at the end of your turn. When Digivolving, you return 1 opposing Digimon back to the opponent's hand, then gain 1 memory for every 4 cards in their hand. Unlike its lower forms, this removal effect is not at all restricted by levels, allowing you to freely choose which Digimon to remove. When attacking, you get to unsuspend this Digimon by returning cards from your opponent's hand back to the bottom of their deck without looking until they only have 8 cards left. This is a pretty crazy effect, and it also isn't limited to once per turn, so it's actually possible to do this again if you manage to add more cards to your opponent's hand while it's still your turn. So your lineup of Digimon offers you plenty of instances of adding cards to your opponent's hand, as well as unsuspending your Digimon. It doesn't stop there. Your tamers also bring with them the same utilities. Your lineup of tamers consists of 4 copies of BT13 Thomas, 2 copies of the classic BT4 Thomas, and 2 copies of BT11 Nikolai. BT13 Thomas is a standard memory fixer, and is arguably your most reliable way of adding cards to your opponent's hand. It also adds a card to your hand at the same time, making it a stable draw engine for you as well. BT4 Thomas can also let you draw a card, but only on play. This Thomas instead adds yet another opportunity for you to unsuspend your Digimon from the Gammon family as its main effect. Be sure to properly resolve the unsuspending effects of your Digimon before finally suspending this Thomas, maximizing the number of times you can unsuspend your Digimon within a single turn. Last but not least is Nikolai. As his name isn't Thomas H. Norstein, he's the only tamer you can't play for free via the effects of your Digimon. However, Nikolai's own effects are perfectly suited to support the Gammon family, making him an excellent addition to the deck nonetheless. Plus, he can give one of your Digimon jamming, which is an incredibly useful tech in this particular deck. And finally, to complete this deck are simply 2 copies of the option card Full Moon Meteor Impact. This is a powerful removal spell for the deck. Although it costs a hefty 8 memory for you to play, you do also gain memory for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand. Most of the time, you'll only end up spending 6 memory if you have to use this card. 2 copies of this card isn't much, but this deck is already tight enough as it is. And that's it for the deck profile. So you might be thinking, is this really a base Digimon deck, or is this just a Mirage Gammon deck profile? And the answer is yes. Should you decide to build this deck exactly as presented here, know that you are harnessing the awesome might of the BasedDigimon channel. If you want to see more content like this, hit the bell to turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching today, but most importantly, take care.